Well, I'm back in Wellington, New Zealand after having travelled 4,033 kilometres in our little diesel-powered Peugeot 2009 Peugeot, a 207 model. And I got to say, a very tiring trip for me, but well worthwhile, because of course if you're going to do a sort of Earthwatch kind of scenario, wanted to go travel around, see as many of the places that I have an interest in. And I guess up until now, about once every 3 years, I actually leave the country. I realise that I'm using up carbon credits doing it, but also I feel that to be informed as a person who's involved making public policy, it is really quite an important thing to do, is to actually get out of your own little pond and go into another pond, if you like, and see what's happening. And I have to say that it's been pretty depressing in some ways, because while the commentary that I was doing for the trip, these little clips you've been seeing where we've been here, there and everywhere, just very, very short, and they're not actually meant to be anything other than just kind of footnotes. I have to say that I always was pretty gloomy in terms of our ability to do a paradigm shift, but I'm utterly convinced now that we aren't doing it, that we can't do it, and that in a way we're headed to destruction. Now, it may just be the end of this age, of this particular era, but everything is pointing to the fact that the problem of overshoot has not been taken seriously. The developers continue to develop, and political people seem to have no ability to exercise good governance. Just turning to the newspaper that I take an interest in, and of course I read more than one newspaper, but the one I have a particular interest in is the Guardian Weekly. And while I was in London, I actually visited the offices of the Guardian Weekly just to get an idea in my head where they were and the environment and all the rest of it. I found them down in Camden Dock in London in a very new building, and we'll actually put some clips of that up so as you can actually have a look. But I have to say that turning to the finance page of the Guardian Weekly, and what do I find? Confirmation of my own conclusions, and that is that on page 17 of this week's issue, governments have no plan B to replace dwindling oil supply. And I'm going to put it up so you can see the headline, because you know the veracity of the statement. And there's the old oil well pumping for what it's worth. We have passed peak oil, and I mean, it's obviously great to see all the little cars in Europe. They're not driving big ones so much. But I have to say that in the end, if we just replace the big cars with many, many more times small cars, we actually haven't achieved very much. It's better, I guess, for the individuals who are using the small cars, because obviously they're cheaper than bigger cars. But in the end, it's a dead-end street what we're in, and of course, I can't be hypocritical about this, because we had a car, we used a little diesel Peugeot diesel, smallest car we could get our hands on, a 207, and it was very economical, but where we were blowing diesel, and one has obviously to be aware of the inconsistencies of one's position when this sort of thing happens. But as I said, you won't actually have any idea of what it's like unless you actually do it. And while we can watch it on television and get the sort of manufactured position of popular culture, actually going to the four main players in the EU is very, very informative. I mean, we were in Italy, we were in France, in Germany, and in the UK, and that was enough to see that in the 3 years since I was last there, the situation, to my way of thinking, has got much worse. The cities are overcrowded, the infrastructure is stretched, and where they have built more roads, the roads have just been filled with cars. So what it does is that the congestion is actually even worse. I'd never seen so many trucks in Europe being used on the roads, and I really thought the Europeans understood the benefit of rail, the rational benefit of rail, but the Europeans are using cars. And there are many more cars on the road, along with many more trucks. So it's not a good look. And I have to say, seeing this article in the Guardian, and it's quite clearly the gap between oil supply and demand measured in barrels per day that is predicted by 2015 is 7 million. The gap. So, you know, we've hit peak oil, we have hit the peak for many other resources, we have overshot our carrying capacity, and there is nothing on the horizon politically to indicate that the paradigm shift that is needed in order for us to survive is going to take place. And in fact, you know, really is just a very clear, to my way of thinking, understanding of the absolute folly that we're in. Anyway, we'll put up a few more posts from the Europe trip, and hopefully some of it will be of some interest to you, and then we'll probably have another wrap up like this and talk a little more about the shortcomings. And, you know, we were in Switzerland and we were saying that Switzerland was a great little country, and it seems to have, you know, a better understanding of the energy problem. But really speaking, the Swiss are probably as bad as any other country. And I know I said they were doing quite well, but, you know, that was in terms of seeing a lot of small cars. And I thought, well, this is better than some of the situations that I've encountered. And in particular, on the way through, we passed through Hong Kong, and Hong Kong, Kowloon has now expanded back into China, you know, 50 kilometres, 100 kilometres, and is just basically kilometre after kilometre of high-rise buildings that are 50, 60, 70 stories high. And we just see the energy vampire at work, sucking the lifeblood out of this planet. So sorry, you guys, but we're ending on a downbeat note, but we'll speak to you soon. Whoa. Rather a grotesque piece of art. Well, you wouldn't believe where we are. We're actually in the building where the Guardian and the Observer are in London, and it's very good surroundings. So they must be very happy people working in that newspaper. We've also just had a look at a photographic exhibition here, and outside we've been looking at some of the sculptures, and the building also looks onto Camden Dock. So yeah, let's have another quick look through the windows at what they see here in this wonderful building.